My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 58 years old. 20 years ago, on the night I gave birth to my daughter Emily, my husband David died in a plane crash, or so I thought. For 2 decades, I carried the guilt of asking him to fly home early for the delivery. Last Friday, my daughter, now a data analyst, showed me a flight manifest she'd found online and said, "Mom, his name isn't on it." I went numb. Everything I'd believed for 20 years shattered in that moment. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe if this story resonates with you. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from right now. Let me take you back to March 15th, 2004. I was 38 years old, 8.5 months pregnant, and sitting in our living room in Portland, Oregon, watching the clock and waiting for my husband to come home. David Michael Hayes. We'd been married for 12 years. He was an investment banker at Morrison & Webb, one of those downtown Portland firms with glass offices and expensive coffee machines. I was an English teacher at Lincoln High School, the kind who stayed late grading papers and helping students who struggled with Shakespeare. We'd been trying for a baby for 7 years. 3 miscarriages, 2 rounds of IVF, more doctor's appointments than I could count. When I finally made it past the first trimester with Emily, we were cautiously, then joyfully, optimistic. David had a business trip scheduled for March 10th through 15th, San Francisco. Some kind of investor meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. I was due March 20th, so the doctors said it was fine for him to go. "I'll be back Friday night," he promised, kissing my forehead on his way out the door. Long before this little one decides to show up. But on March 14th, I started having contractions. Nothing serious at first, Braxton Hicks probably. But by midnight, they were getting stronger and more regular. I called David at 12:47 a.m. "Maggie, what's wrong?" "I think it's time. The contractions are 5 minutes apart. It's too early. You're not due for another 5 days. Babies don't follow schedules, David. Can you come home?" There was a pause. I heard voices in the background, hotel room sounds. "I have the final presentation tomorrow morning. The Peterson account is worth $4 million, Maggie. I can't just—" "David, I'm having our baby." Another pause. Longer this time. Okay. I'll see if I can get a flight tonight. Let me call you back." He called back at 1:15 a.m. "I got a seat on the 6 a.m. flight. I'll be in Portland by 8. Can you hold out until then?" I laughed, even though I was scared. "I'll do my best. I love you, Maggie. I'm coming home, I promise." Those were the last words I ever heard him say. I called my best friend Linda Chen at 2 a.m. She's a nurse at Providence Portland Medical Center, and she met me in the labor and delivery wing at 3:30. "Where's David?" she asked, helping me into a hospital gown. "Flying home. He should be here by 8. He better be. I've got a 12-hour shift, but I'm staying with you until he gets here." Emily decided she wasn't waiting for anyone. The contractions intensified at 5 a.m. By 6:30, I was fully dilated. By 7:15, I was pushing. At 7:43 a.m., Emily Rose Hayes came into the world. 6 pounds 3 ounces with a full head of dark hair and her father's nose. "She's perfect," Linda whispered, placing her in my arms. "Absolutely perfect." I looked at the door, waiting for David to walk through it. He should have landed by now. He should be in a cab racing to the hospital. At 9:30 a.m., 2 police officers walked into my recovery room. I knew before they said anything. "You always know. Mrs. Vatt?" "Hayes? Yes? I'm Officer Rodriguez. This is Officer Chin. We need to speak with you about your husband, David Hayes." Linda stood up from the chair beside my bed, her nurse instincts kicking in. "Can this wait? She just gave birth 2 hours ago." "I'm afraid not, ma'am." Officer Rodriguez looked at me with the expression I'd come to recognize over the years, the one police officers practice for delivering unbearable news. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm very sorry to inform you that United Airlines Flight 447 from San Francisco to Portland crashed this morning shortly after takeoff. There were no survivors." The room went silent. I could hear the monitor beeping. I could hear Emily making small sounds in the bassinet beside me. I could hear Linda's sharp intake of breath. "That's the flight David was on," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant. "Yes, ma'am. We have reason to believe your husband was a passenger on that flight. We'll need you to provide information for identification purposes, but we wanted to notify you immediately." I looked down at Emily, 2 hours old, sleeping peacefully. "He didn't get to meet her," I said. Linda grabbed my hand. "He was coming home for me," I continued. "I called him. I told him to come home. If I hadn't called, he would have taken a later flight. He would have been at his presentation. He would have been alive." "Mrs. Hayes, this is not your fault. I killed him," I said. "I killed my daughter's father." That belief settled into my chest that morning and lived there for the next 20 years. The memorial service was held 3 weeks later. David's body was never recovered. The crash had been catastrophic, the wreckage scattered across a field outside San Francisco. We had a closed casket with photos, flowers, and 200 people who knew David from work, from our neighborhood, from our life together. I stood at the front of the chapel holding a 3-week-old baby and listened to people talk about my husband. What a dedicated professional he was. What a loving husband. What a tragedy that he'd never get to meet his daughter. David's father, Robert Hayes, spoke at the service. He was 62 then, a retired attorney with the same strong jaw David had. "My son was coming home to be with his family," Robert said, his voice cracking. "He was doing what any good husband and father would do, and we lost him for it." Every word was a knife. After the service, Robert pulled me aside. "Maggie, I want you to know. If you need anything at all, you call me. You're still family. That little girl is my granddaughter, and I'll be there for both of you." He kept that promise. For 20 years, Robert was the grandfather Emily needed, the family support I couldn't have survived without. The first year was the hardest. I went back to teaching when Emily was 3 months old because I needed the health insurance and the routine. Linda helped with child care. Robert visited every Sunday. Our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, brought casseroles every week for 6 months. Everyone was so kind, so supportive. And every act of kindness reminded me that I was the reason we needed support in the first place. When Emily was 2, she pointed at the photo of David on our mantel and said, "Dada?" "Yes, sweetheart, that's your daddy." "Where Dada?" "Dada had to go away. But he loved you very much." How do you explain to a 2-year-old that her father died coming home to meet her? How do you explain the guilt that explanation carries? When Emily was 5, she asked more specific questions. "How did Daddy die?" "There was an accident with an airplane." "Was he a pilot?" "No, honey. He was just trying to come home to us." "Why?" "Because I was having you and he wanted to be there." "So it's because of me?" My heart stopped. "No, Emily. No, it's not because of you." But in my head I thought, it's because of me. When Emily was 10, we had the conversation I'd been dreading. "Mom, can you tell me the whole story?" "About Dad." We were sitting in her bedroom, surrounded by books and stuffed animals and the life I'd tried to build for her. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. I'm old enough." So I told her about the pregnancy, the business trip, the call in the middle of the night, the plane crash. I told her everything except the guilt. That was mine to carry alone. "Do you have pictures from when I was born?" she asked. "Some. Linda took a few at the hospital." "Can I see them?" I got the album from my closet. Photos of me holding newborn Emily, exhausted and terrified. Linda beside me, smiling for the camera. The hospital room with balloons that David's coworkers had sent. Emily studied each photo carefully. "You look sad," she said. "I'd just found out about Dad." "But you have me. Wasn't that happy?" I pulled her into a hug. "Having you was the happiest moment of my life, Emily, even in the middle of the saddest." She was quiet for a moment. "Then, do you think Dad would have liked me?" "He would have loved you more than anything in the world." Throughout Emily's childhood and teenage years, I built my entire life around being enough for both of us. I went to every school event, every softball game, every piano recital. I helped with homework, drove carpool, hosted sleepovers. I became the mom who was always there, always available, always trying to make up for the parent who wasn't. I dated occasionally, brief relationships that never went anywhere because I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd already used up my chance at love and destroyed it with one phone call. Linda would tell me I was being ridiculous. Maggie, you can't punish yourself forever. David's death was not your fault. I called him. I asked him to come home early. You were having a baby. That's what husbands do. But if I'd just waited, then Emily would have been born without either parent there. Would that have been better? I never had an answer for that. When Emily graduated high school in 2022, she'd been accepted to Portland State University for computer science. She was brilliant with numbers, patterns, data, everything I wasn't. She got that from David. I'm staying in Portland, she announced. I want to be close to home. Emily, you could go anywhere. You got into Berkeley, into University of Washington. I know, but I want to be here with you. I cried that night. Happy tears and guilty ones. Had I made her feel like she couldn't leave? Had I held on too tight because I'd lost her father? Emily lived in the dorms her freshman year, but came home most weekends. She graduated in 3 years instead of 4, took summer classes, overloaded her semesters, finished at 19. My brilliant girl. In January 2024, she started her first real job at a tech startup in downtown Portland. Data analyst, $72,000 a year. She found an apartment in the Pearl District with 2 roommates and started building her adult life. And I started trying to figure out mine. In February 2024, I went on a date, a real one, with a man named Tom Bennett I'd met at a community book club. He was 61, a widower who'd lost his wife to cancer 3 years earlier. He taught history at Portland Community College. We had dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant. How long has it been? He asked. Since your husband passed? 20 years this March. That's a long time to be alone. I had my daughter. I wasn't really alone. But still, 20 years. I guess I never felt like I deserved to move on. Tom looked at me across the table. Why not? Because he died coming home to me. To us. If I'd just waited, if I'd just been patient. He died in a plane crash, Margaret. That's not your fault. Everyone said that. Nobody understood that intellectual knowledge and emotional truth are 2 different things. I saw Tom twice more after that. He was kind, patient, understanding. But I couldn't let him in. Not really. Not while I was still carrying David's death like a stone in my chest. Then came last Friday, March 8th, 2024. Emily showed up at my house at 7 p.m. I was grading papers. Even though I'd retired in 2022, I still did substitute teaching and graded for other teachers. Mom, I need to show you something. She had her laptop. She sat down at the kitchen table with that expression she gets when she solved a particularly complex data problem. What is it, honey? I've been researching Dad. I set down my pen. Why? Because I've never really known him. I wanted to see what I could find out. Old articles, maybe photos you didn't have, I don't know. Just something. Emily, we've been over this. Mom, listen. I started with the plane crash. Flight 447, March 15th, 2004, San Francisco to Portland. And I found something. She turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a document from the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. A passenger manifest, the official list of everyone on United Airlines Flight 447. I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request 2 months ago, Emily said. These records are public after 20 years. I got the full manifest last week. My heart was pounding. Emily, why would you look at the list, Mom? I scanned the names. 147 passengers. Alphabetical order. Hamilton, Gregory Hampton, Lisa Harrison, Michael Hart, Jennifer Harvey. David. I kept reading. Hayes wasn't there. I went back to the top. Read through again. Carefully. David Michael Hayes was not on that list. There's a mistake, I said. The FAA made an error. That's what I thought. So I cross-referenced it with the crash investigation report, the airline's own records, and 3 different databases. Mom, Dad's name doesn't appear on any of them. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. That's impossible. The police told me he was on that plane. The police told you they believed he was on that plane, but there's no record of him actually being a passenger. They said his body wasn't recovered because of the crash. There were 147 bodies recovered, Mom. All 147 passengers. They were all identified. Everyone except the person who wasn't there. I couldn't breathe. 20 years of certainty, of guilt, of grief, all of it built on the foundation that David had been on that plane. Then where is he? I whispered. Emily's expression was a mixture of determination and fear. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Over the next week, Emily and I became investigators in our own lives. She took time off work. I canceled my substitute teaching commitments. We turned the dining room into a command center laptop, printer, files spread across the table. We started with the basics. Emily pulled David's death certificate. It listed the cause of death as airplane crash and was signed by a medical examiner. But there was a note at the bottom, body not recovered. Death presumed based on passenger manifest and eyewitness accounts. What eyewitness accounts? I asked. Emily pulled up the police report from 2004. I'd never read it, couldn't bear to at the time. According to the report, David's coworker, a man named Mitchell Barnes, had told police he dropped David off at San Francisco International Airport for the 6 a.m. flight. He'd seen David check in, seen him go through security. We need to talk to Mitchell Barnes, Emily said. I pulled up the Morrison & Webb website. Mitchell Barnes was still listed as senior vice president. I called the next morning. Morrison & Webb, how may I direct your call? Mitchell Barnes, please. May I ask who's calling? Margaret Hayes. David Hayes' widow. There was a pause. 1 moment. Mitchell Barnes picked up 30 seconds later. His voice was cautious. Margaret, it's been a long time. 20 years. I heard you retired from teaching. How are you? I need to ask you about the morning David died. Silence. Mitchell, you told police you dropped him at the airport. You saw him check in for flight 447. Yes, that's correct. Are you absolutely certain? Can you picture it? Margaret, why are you asking this? Because his name isn't on the passenger manifest. He was never on that plane. The silence that followed told me everything. Mitchell, what really happened? I dropped him at departures. I saw him get out of the car with a suitcase. I assumed he went to check in. You assumed. I had to get to my own flight. I was heading to Seattle that morning. I dropped him and left. So you didn't actually see him check in. You didn't see him go through security. No. I'm sorry, Margaret. All these years, I thought. I hung up. Emily had been listening on speaker. He lied to police. Not exactly. He told them what he believed to be true, but he didn't actually confirm it. So Dad could have gotten out of that car and gone anywhere. The implications were staggering. We pulled David's financial records next. It took Emily 2 days to track down old bank statements from 2004. The accounts had been closed after David's death. The life insurance payout had gone into a new account in my name. But the statements from March 2004 told a story I'd never known. On March 10th, the day David left for San Francisco, he withdrew $50,000 from our joint savings account. Cash withdrawal. On March 12th, another $75,000. Also cash. On March 13th, $125,000 transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Mom, did you know about these withdrawals? I felt sick. No, I never looked at the accounts. After he died, the bank handled everything. The life insurance was deposited, the old accounts were closed. I didn't question it. He took $250,000 in 3 days. We had that much? You had $380,000 in combined savings and investment accounts in March 2004. He liquidated 2/3 of it. I sat down heavily. Why would he do that? Emily's expression was grim. People who are about to disappear need money. No, no, that's not David wouldn't. Mom, think about it. He withdraws $250,000. He gets dropped at the airport but doesn't get on the plane. He's never seen again. The crash happens and everyone assumes he died. It's the perfect cover. But why? Why would he leave? We were about to have a baby. I don't know, but we're going to find out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about March 15th, 2004. The phone call where I asked David to come home. His hesitation. The voices I'd heard in the background. Had there been someone with him? Had I heard something I'd dismissed at the time? The next morning, Emily showed me something else. I searched for David's passport records. He had 2 passports issued in his name. That's not unusual. People renew them. Not renew, Mom. 2 different passports with different numbers, issued 4 months apart. One in January 2004, one in September 2003. Why would he need 2 passports? You don't, unless you're building a second identity. I stared at the documents on the screen. 2 passport photos of my husband, same face, different issue dates. There's more, Emily said quietly. I found a safety deposit box. What? Where? Wells Fargo, downtown Portland. It was registered to David, but you're listed as a secondary holder. Did you know about it? No. We can access it. You're authorized. We went to the bank that afternoon. The safety deposit box was small, tucked in the vault with hundreds of others. The bank manager, a woman in her 40s named Patricia, led us to a private room. I'll need your ID and the key, Patricia said. I don't have a key. In cases where the key is lost, we can drill the box, but there's a fee. Do it. 20 minutes later, Patricia returned with the drilled box. Inside, a passport with David's photo and a name I didn't recognize. Michael Dawson. A birth certificate from Michael Dawson, born in Ohio in 1966, the same year as David. And a handwritten note. My hands shook as I picked up the note. The handwriting was David's. If you're reading this, something went wrong. I'm sorry. I never wanted it to be this way. The money should be enough for you and the baby. Don't try to find me. It's safer if you don't. D. I read it 3 times. Emily's hand was on my shoulder. Mom. He planned this, I said. My voice sounded hollow. He planned all of it. That night, back at my house, I sat at the kitchen table while Emily made tea I couldn't drink. He withdrew the money. He created a fake identity. He wrote that note, and then he let me think he died. We don't know. I blamed myself for 20 years, Emily. 20 years. I carried the guilt of killing your father, and he was alive the whole time. We don't know that he's alive now. He was alive on March 15th, 2004. He chose to disappear. He chose to let me believe he was on that plane. Emily sat down across from me. What do you want to do? I want to know why. We hired a private investigator. Detective Sarah Morrison came recommended by Linda, who knew her from a case at the hospital. Sarah was 45, ex-Portland police, with 20 years of experience finding people who didn't want to be found. I've seen cases like this, Sarah said when we met in her office. Staged deaths, false identities. Usually there's debt involved, or criminal activity, or an affair. Sometimes all 3. David wasn't a criminal, I said. Sarah's expression was kind but firm. Mrs. Hayes, your husband withdrew $250,000, obtained a fake passport, and disappeared the night your daughter was born. Whatever he was, we need to be prepared for what we might find. Sarah started with financial forensics. She traced the $125,000 transfer to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The account was opened in February 2004 under the name Michael Dawson. Did your husband have gambling debts? Sarah asked. Not that I knew of. Affairs? I don't think so. Any indication he was unhappy in the marriage? I thought about those last months. David had been stressed about work, the Peterson account he mentioned on the phone that had been a big deal. But unhappy? I didn't think so. I thought we were happy, I said quietly. Sarah found more. David had booked a one-way flight to Mexico City on March 16, 2004 under the name Michael Dawson. The flight left from LAX at 2 p.m. He drove from San Francisco to Los Angeles, Sarah explained. Probably a rental car under the Dawson name, then flew to Mexico. Can you trace him from there? Mexico is where trails often go cold, but I'll try. It took Sarah 3 weeks. On April 2nd, 2024, she called me to her office. I found him, she said. I couldn't speak. Or at least, I found where Michael Dawson went. He flew from Mexico City to Bogota, Colombia in April 2004. Then the trail goes dark for 2 years. But in 2006, a Michael Dawson registered a business in Medellin, an import/export company. The business is still active. Is he still there? The business address is current. I can't confirm if David himself is still there without going to Colombia, but the company exists, and it's registered to someone matching his description. Emily was with me. She'd been with me for every step of this investigation. We should go, Emily said. We should go to Colombia and find him. I looked at my daughter, 20 years old, fierce and determined, ready to confront the father who'd abandoned her before she was born. No, I said. Mom, Emily, no. I'm not dragging you to Colombia to chase a ghost. He's not a ghost. He's real. He's been alive this whole time while you blamed yourself. I know. But confronting him won't change the past. It won't give me back 20 years. It won't give you a father. Then what do we do? I looked at Sarah. Can you confirm if he's still alive? If this Michael Dawson is actually David? I can send someone to Medellin. Make contact, verify identity. But Mrs. Hayes, I have to ask, what are you hoping to get from this? What did I want? For 20 years, I'd wanted David back. I'd wanted to undo that phone call, to tell him not to rush home, to keep him safe. Now I knew he'd never been in danger. He'd chosen to leave. What I wanted now was different. I want to know he's alive, I said. I want to know he's out there somewhere, living his life. And then I want to let him go. Sarah sent an investigator to Medellin. 2 weeks later, she called with confirmation. Michael Dawson is David Hayes. The investigator showed him a photo of you and Emily. He confirmed his identity. Did he say anything? He said to tell you he's sorry, that he was young and stupid and made a terrible mistake, that he thinks about you and Emily every day. Did he ask about Emily? He asked if she was healthy, if she was happy. I closed my eyes. What did you tell him? I told him she's brilliant, successful, and loved, and that you spent 20 years being the parent he chose not to be. After I hung up with Sarah, I sat in my living room for a long time, the same living room where I'd waited for David to come home 20 years ago, the same house where I'd raised Emily alone. Emily came over that evening. What are you going to do? She asked. Nothing. Nothing? He's alive. That's all I needed to know. I'm not going to contact him. I'm not going to ask for explanations or apologies. I'm just going to let it be. How can you do that? After everything, because the alternative is spending the rest of my life angry about the past. And I'm tired, Emily. I'm so tired of carrying him around. Don't you want to know why he left? I know enough. He was scared or trapped or running from something. It doesn't matter. What matters is that he left and I stayed, and we built a good life anyway. Emily was quiet for a moment. I'm angry at him. You have every right to be. And I'm so grateful for you. You gave me everything. I pulled her into a hug. You gave me everything, Em. You're the reason I survived. That weekend I called Tom Bennett. Tom, it's Margaret. I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner this week. I'd like that very much. Friday. Friday's perfect. On Friday, April 19th, 2024, I had dinner with Tom at the same Italian restaurant we'd gone to in February. But this time, when he asked about David, I told him the truth. He didn't die in a plane crash, he faked his death and disappeared to Colombia. Tom set down his wine glass. What? I told him the whole story. The investigation, the financial records, the fake passport, the confirmation from Medellin. For 20 years, I blamed myself for his death. I built my entire life around that guilt, and none of it was real. How do you feel? Lighter, I said. For the first time in 20 years, I feel lighter. Are you going to contact him? No. He made his choice. I'm making mine. Tom reached across the table and took my hand. What's your choice? To stop living in the past. To stop punishing myself for someone else's decisions. To let myself be happy. Can I be part of that happiness? I smiled. A real smile. Not the careful one I'd been wearing for 2 decades. I'd like that. 6 months have passed since Emily showed me that flight manifest. 6 months since my world shifted on its axis and everything I believed turned out to be a lie. David is still in Colombia, as far as I know. I haven't contacted him. Emily hasn't either, though she's angrier than I am. She's in therapy now, processing the abandonment, working through the father issues that appeared overnight when she learned the truth. My therapist says I should be grateful I never knew him, Emily told me last week. She says I dodged a bullet. Maybe. But you're still allowed to be angry. Are you angry? Sometimes. Mostly, I'm just relieved. Relieved that I didn't kill him. Relieved that the guilt was a lie. Relieved that I can finally let it go. I'm still seeing Tom. We're taking it slow, but it's good. He makes me laugh. He doesn't try to fix me or save me. He just shows up. I've started writing again, something I haven't done since college. Poetry, mostly. Short pieces about loss and discovery and learning to live in truth instead of narrative. Robert, David's father, took the news hard. He's 82 now, and learning that his son faked his death and disappeared was almost too much. I defended him, Robert said when I told him. Every time someone said something negative, I defended him. I said he was a good man who died trying to be a good father. He was your son. You loved him. He let me mourn him for 20 years, Margaret. What kind of person does that? Someone who is running from himself more than from us. Robert has met Tom. They get along. Sometimes the three of us have dinner, me, my maybe future partner, and my definitely former father-in-law. We're building something new from the wreckage of something old. Linda still can't believe it. 20 years, she keeps saying. 20 years we thought he was dead. 20 years I blamed myself. And now I know better. Now I know that people make their own choices, and those choices aren't my responsibility. Last week I got a letter, forwarded through Detective Morrison, from Colombia. I almost threw it away without opening it. But Emily was there, and she said, "You should read it. You should know what he has to say." The letter was 2 pages. David's handwriting, older now, shakier. "Dear Maggie, I don't have the right to write to you. I know that. But I'm an old man now, 58, can you believe it? And I'm running out of time to say things that should have been said 20 years ago. I was a coward. That's the simple truth. I was drowning in debt from bad investments, terrified of being a father, convinced I would fail at everything that mattered. When the plane crashed and Mitchell told police he'd dropped me at the airport, I saw a way out. A terrible, selfish, unforgivable way out. I took the money and ran. I told myself you'd be better off without me, that the life insurance would provide for you and the baby, that I was doing you a favor. I was wrong about everything. I followed your life from a distance. Digital footprints are hard to hide even in Colombia. I know Emily graduated early. I know she's brilliant and strong, just like you. I know you retired from teaching and that you gave her everything I didn't. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve acknowledgement. I just wanted you to know that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. Not the only mistake I made, many, but the one I regret most. You deserved better than me. Emily deserved better than me. I hope you've both found it. David, I read it twice. Emily read it over my shoulder. What are you going to do? She asked. Nothing. You're not going to write back. What would I say? That I forgive him? I'm not sure I do. That I hate him? I don't. He's just a person who made terrible choices. I'm not going to carry his guilt for him anymore. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer with other things from the past: photos, old cards, memories I've processed and put away. Do you think he's happy? Emily asked. I don't know. I hope so. Everyone deserves a chance to be happy, even people who make unforgivable mistakes. Do you think you'll ever want to talk to him? Maybe someday. When it doesn't hurt. When I can look at him and see a stranger instead of the person I used to love. When will that be? I don't know, but I'm not going to rush it. This morning I woke up in my house, the same house where I lived with David, where I brought Emily home from the hospital, where I built a life as a single mother. But it feels different now. Lighter. The guilt that lived in my chest for 20 years is gone. Not replaced with anger or bitterness, just gone. Like a weight I'd carried so long I forgot it was there until someone lifted it. I'm 58 years old. My daughter is 20. My husband faked his death and has been living in Colombia for 2 decades. These are the facts of my life. But they're not the story of my life. The story is about a woman who raised a brilliant daughter alone, who taught English to teenagers and made a difference in lives she'll never fully know, who survived grief and guilt and the revelation that both were built on lies, who learned finally that she was never the person who needed forgiveness. If you've ever carried guilt for someone else's choices, if you've ever blamed yourself for things outside your control, if you've ever discovered that the story you'd been telling yourself was wrong, I want to hear about it. Drop your story in the comments below. And if you're currently carrying guilt that isn't yours to carry, I want you to know you can put it down. It's not easy, and it doesn't happen all at once, but you can let it go. Subscribe if you want more stories about truth, healing, and learning to live without the weight of false blame. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. What would you do if you discovered a loved one had faked their death? Would you want to confront them, or would you let them go? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here. And remember, the stories we tell ourselves shape our lives. Make sure they're true. END.